Hi, everyone. Sean Paul Ellis here from the Saturday Morning Cartoons podcast. Remember, that's morning with you. Some quick pre-show announcements. What's actually happening in November? A shout out. And then what is actually happening on today's episode? This month, we are watching and reviewing some of my favorite shows with Netflix November. We're watching BoJack Horseman and Big Mouth. We even have a surprise episode coming in between these two episodes. If you're digging these episodes and you want to share them, tell a friend, put it in skywriting, awesome. Thank you. We really appreciate everyone getting the word out about this show. It all helps. Every share, like, retweet, all of it. Quick shout out. Gang, we have achieved our 2018 campaign to get Bobby Anthem animated. Listener Brian has drawn Bobby in the style of Bob's Burgers. We posted it November 1st. It's awesome. Go check it out. We love it so very much. If you want to animate Bobby, drop us a message. We love it, and we will send you some free stickers and plug you like we are for Brian, which brings us to Brian's Twitch. You should go check him out on twitch.tv and subscribe. He's under the tag Typhaenstein. That's Typhenstein. We're going to have all of this in our notes, so don't worry about it. Go follow him if you're into video games. I watched him play Fortnite the other night. It's the first time I've ever actually watched anybody play Fortnite. Brian is awesome. I think you'll dig him as well. Go check him out and subscribe to him. What are we talking about today? We are, of course, talking about Netflix's BoJack Horseman. BoJack is a complicated show, and we talk a bunch about topics ranging from addiction, depression, and even personal loss. We're doing all of this through the lens of comedy. If you are experiencing any of these things, then please ask for help and know that people care about you. I care about you, and so do my special guests today, Kate Syme and Adam Koussari-Amin. Adam is a super BoJack fan, and Kate is a little less experienced with BoJack, so let's see if we can sell her on this show. All of that and more on today's episode, so now, on with the show. Hello, and welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoons, the podcast that revisits, reviews, and ridicules some of the world's weirdest animated series. Coming to you all the way from the 90s on the set of Horsing Around, I'll be your host, Sean Paul Ellis. And joining me today, the new CEO of the company PB Living that has come right out of bankruptcy, we are joined by Triple Threat, podcaster, performer, and DJ Adam Koussari-Amin. How's it going?
It's great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Congratulations on becoming the CEO of PB Living.
Thank you. It's been a real hard journey, but now we're back on track.
from the brinks of bankruptcy.
So many good ideas. So many good ideas.
So many good ideas. So little time. Plus, not enough pasta strainers.
Right.
Just in general.
They're not building up in my apartment just yet.
Also joining us today, back from her time on the Giggle Ship with improviser Copernicus from Shenanigans, we have DC-based performer Kate Syme.
That's right. Welcome to me.
How was the trip?
It was rocky. It was a boat. It was a ship, if you will.
Oh, it was an improv comedy cruise.
Improv comedy cruise. I mean, like, how else would you imagine it to be?
I don't know.
It's a bunch of people on a boat trying to out-funny each other.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah.
Terribly fun.
It was both terrible and terribly fun. I loved it, but I also hated it.
And I mean, you were there for 6 months.
Yeah. And I'll never get that time back. So, but I learned things about myself.
Like.
You can't drop that hot tip and not get into it, Kate.
I get very, very grumpy when I'm tired.
Okay.
That's the main thing
I've experienced that.
Yeah.
Today,
yeah. I'm experiencing
a lot of fire in your eyes.
Yeah, Sean did experience it earlier. I don't think I got grumpy. I got just loopy.
You've
I needed coffee.
Burnout.
Yeah.
I needed coffee, and I referenced it many, many times. So, yeah.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
And we were able to get
But
coffee.
I learned that about myself, so I know that now.
Good.
So I'm able to tell people.
Sort of in the same way that I get hangry.
Yeah.
If I don't eat, you get
I get
coffee angry.
I get
Kangry.
Kangry?
Kangry?
I like it, Adam.
Sure.
Kofgry?
Co-
We'll workshop this if we have to.
Another 6 months on that comedy giggle ship. We are gonna
We'll
be
get there.
right on track.
Yeah.
Speaking of getting right on track, if you are not familiar with any of these references and you didn't read the title of today's episode, we are, of course, talking about Netflix's BoJack Horseman today. All of the different things that are in there. This is going to be increasingly exciting. And as always, I want to begin the conversation with sort of understanding sort of where this show fell in terms of your awareness. When did you watch this? What was your exposure? Because this is a relatively new show that's been on for 5 seasons. So 5 years ago, it started on Netflix. And I believe it was like one of those early kind of like streaming shows that they had during that time. And so, Adam, I wanted to just check and see, what was your experience with BoJack?
So I started watching it at the tail end of... So the first season was over, so fast forward a year. It was right before the second season was about to come out. So I had seen advertising for it when it had first launched, and I wasn't really bought into it. I thought it looked a little bit over the top. They're like, it really, when I go back and think about it, it had a lot of the same problems that like Arrested Development did, or many shows where you can't condense what you're going to get from the show in a quick 30-second, 60-second commercial.
Right.
Because none of the jokes land, the references don't make sense. It's impossible to really get out what's actually so good about the show. So luckily, it was actually my friend Vaughn was visiting from Miami, and so she and I are just like randomly started watching it. Another friend of ours was like with us, and he's like, he had already watched the first season, and he was just like, get through, just a couple of episodes. And I've had this same thing with like Battlestar Galactica. This like the old, it's old now, but it was like back in the 2000s or whatever.
Right.
But God, it's almost fucking 20 years.
Yeah.
But it was just like, I finished it. And Game of Thrones, even the first, if you go back and watch the first episode, like the pilot, you're just like, it's not that good, but you could see something in it. And so this was one of those shows where like we were just like, let's get through this. We watched the entire first season within that weekend. And then luckily the second season was launching that week. And so immediately got to watch it, fell in love with the show since then. It was really like at the halfway mark of the first season that I was just like, this is such a fucking fantastic show. And then just have subsequently hunted the seasons every year to watch it immediately when it premieres. I think I got through season 5 in the first weekend that it premiered.
Wow.
I'm such a super fan of the show.
Good.
Kate?
Kate, what was your experience?
Different than Adam's.
No, and that's okay.
So same thing. I think the first season had already come out. Second season was starting, and it was back on my radar as something I should watch. This is one of those shows that I watched part of the first episode maybe 13 times. Always like, the problem was I was like, I got to watch this, and it wasn't grabbing me immediately. And I've done the same thing with The Wire and a couple others.
I have not been able to get past the first episode of The Wire.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
No matter how much people tell me, I'm just like, I can't.
I know.
And they even make a fucking joke about that in BoJack Horseman. Sorry.
Right.
So it's I'm super happy that we're doing this today because it made me go back and watch more of the show. And Adam is a big fan, I know, and someone whose opinion I respect about shows. So I watched more. I'm into it now. I haven't watched every single episode of every season, but I agree with that Arrested Development comparison that I think it was only on my radar ever because people whose opinion I respect on comedy or television in general talked about it, but it never sang to me. It wasn't like it was on my list of things I've got to watch. Although the cast is insane. I mean, some of my favorite comedians.
I mean, it really is a stellar voice cast.
Yeah.
And I had a very similar experience. It's weird that we keep making, or that we've made the Arrested Development kind of parallel because I didn't even know that Arrested Development had come out. I had no idea what the show was about. And then for Christmas one year, I got the first season on DVD. And I watched, I think it was the first 2 or 3 episodes. And it's the scene where Job puts like dead birds in the freezer.
Yeah.
And that whole moment where he is like walking out of the pet store and it shows the footage and he slams into the door, and then he turns around and he's like, what's your return
return
policy?
policy?
Which is funny to say that, obviously some of the voice cast translates
Came over,
into
yeah.
BoJack Horseman. In that moment, I was eating a Triscuit, and I laughed so hard that I choked on the Triscuit
Oh my God.
and then threw up.
Oh, I just rewatched the first season of Arrested Development, and it's like
Fantastic.
pound for pound one of the best shows ever. But the other comparison I have is Breaking Bad, which there are some parallels here too, obviously.
Okay.
But same thing. It was out. It was done. It was one of those shows everyone's like, you got to watch this show, and I hadn't. And then I watched the first episode and binge watched the whole thing in like 2 weeks.
Additionally, the thought that when I kind of introduced you and talked about Copernicus and sort of the improv jokes that they make in this, my sister had watched the second season, and I was in the process of watching season 1, and I'd gotten to like the tipping point that Adam had mentioned, where it was like, oh no, I'm now like in love with this show. I can't stop watching this. And my sister had finished season 2, and she had called or text messaged me saying, did you see all the stuff about improv comedy that was in season 2? I was like, I haven't gotten there yet. She's like, you should watch it. You should watch it.
It's really well. I love that improv is the new like comedy show punching bag, but in a way that people that obviously are writing about it are people that obviously do improv or did improv or connected to it, because it's like it's the same. I was mentioning with like You're the Worst, and we could probably talk about it a little more later, that there's like very obvious parallels between the structures of the show.
Yeah. Right.
But I shit you not, in both second season, I think they pretty much came out around the same year. Maybe You're the Worst came out a year or two later, because I think they're on their fifth season now. They literally have a second half arc where both the Todd characters in both shows go do improv, and it's like the weirdest.
Yeah.
It's like so weird that the mind melds are there, that like that all got done.
Yeah.
I think any show that's set in Hollywood, that makes sense, because that's what, and it does set it up like this is what the person who's never gonna make it as like a serious actor goes to do.
The HBO show with Bill Hader. Barry has improv scenes that are in it as well, and like it is, I mean, we've all been performers. It's cringeworthy to watch other friends bomb on stage, but then it's even cringeworthy to watch like a YouTube video of a performance that you've done like a couple days later, and you're like, oh. So then to see actors have to act like they are in an improvised scene and setting is so cringeworthy for me. I don't know what it is. It's a challenge, but it ends up making for great comedy because it's lampooning something that I love.
Yeah, it's one of the easier art forms, I think, to lampoon, because so much of it is bad. I do want to bring forth the BoJack. You just got proved. Like that's my favorite. Like they just Todd talks to that woman and tells her that her friend exploded, like as a yes and kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
And this is fantastic.
You got
like you got proved.
You got proved. Well, we've talked a little bit about BoJack right now. So if you're interested in some history about BoJack and some of the voice casts that we've talked about and how fantastic they are, BoJack Horseman is an American adult animated comedy drama series created by Raphael Bob Waxberg. The series stars Will Arnett as the title character of BoJack Horseman, with a supporting cast including Amy Sedaris, Allison Brie, Paul F. Tompkins, and Aaron Paul. The series' first season premiered on August 22nd of 2014 on Netflix, with a Christmas special premiering on December 19th of the same year. The show is designed by cartoonist Lisa Hannawalt, who had previously worked with Bob Waxberg on the comic strip Tip Me Over and Pour Me Out. Alongside having satirical takes on current events, politics, and show business, BoJack is lauded for its realistic take on dealing with depression, trauma, addiction, self-destructive behavior, and the human experience. Despite mixed reviews upon its debut, critics were notably more positive towards the second half of the first season, before universally acclaiming in subsequent seasons. In 2018, online magazine Thrillist ranked it as the best Netflix original series of all time. On September 21st of 2017, the series was renewed for a fifth season, which premiered recently on September 14th this year. So this is Netflix November. We are talking about only Netflix shows. So I would not have been able to do this month without talking about BoJack, because it is probably as Adam had mentioned, binging the entire first season or fifth season, binging the entire fifth season the weekend it came out. Last year when season 4 came out, I was overseas and I downloaded all of it on my phone. And at night, like when I was kind of calming down and relaxing from the day, friend and wife of the show, Melanie Harker, and I we just binged the entire thing when we were in Italy because we just did not want to miss what had happened. Just love it that much. Such a good show.
Awesome.
So to give us a little bit of context about what BoJack is actually about as a series, Kate is going to help us out with sort of an overview.
Cool. The series takes place mostly in Hollywood, later known as Hollywoo, after the D in the Hollywood sign is destroyed in a romantic gesture. In an alternate world where humans and tailless anthropomorphic animals live side by side. BoJack Horseman, the washed-up star of the 1990s sitcom Horsin' Around, plans his big return to celebrity relevance with a tell-all autobiography that he dictates to his ghostwriter, Diane, I'm going to botch her last name. Nguyen. Because even after just
no,
recently
that's the best part. Like,
I know.
Yeah.
But okay, I'll get into that later.
So BoJack, like, don't even try it. Just like.
Well, even watching the show, I was like, yeah, how do you say that? BoJack also has to contend with the demands of his agent and on-again, off-again girlfriend, Princess Carolyn, the misguided antics of his freeloading roommate, Todd Chavez, and his friend and rival, Mr. Peanut Butter.
This is such a funny plot write-up. It's like it's what the show is about, but it's like such a weird normal version of the show.
Yeah. Any of the emotional impacting moments and subtleties of it completely lost by the Wikipedia synopsis and plot write-up. So thanks, Wikipedia. Right. If anybody wants to go in and kind of edit this and make it, I don't know, a little bit more nuanced, we'd really appreciate it.
That's great.
Isn't that the job of Wikipedia, though, to take all nuance and emotion out of?
Oh, you mean something that just gives us facts?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Because I feel like you could go to Wikipedia and look up Stormy Daniels, and it'll just be like an American porn actress.
Yeah. But if it was really great American porn actress,
right.
You'd be like, oh.
Also, if it winked in the article, that
like I did.
Yeah.
I don't know why I winked.
Really great. Wink, wink.
Oh man.
You know what I mean.
So again, this gives you really a good idea of sort of the overview, and I would say some of the relationships that you're introduced within season 1 that begin to evolve over the 5 seasons that are available. Mm-hmm. And so this kind of is it's dipping your toe into some of it, but it's not really giving you the plunge. And after 5 seasons of, I know, Adam having completed it, I am so close to finishing the 5th season that it's painful. It really is very painful to watch.
Are you going to finish tonight?
I will probably finish tonight or tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I'm going to watch more tonight.
Good use of the weekend.
Inspiring.
I love the fact that we're just and we're done with the show. We've already given our reviews. Great.
Well,
we're there.
Yeah, maybe you're hate watching it. We don't know yet.
Yeah.
We'll have to find out.
Yeah, you don't know. Cliffhanger till later.
Yeah, I mean, if I wanted to hate watch something on Netflix, I'd watch any of the Iron Fist.
Oh yeah,
that's right.
I
said it.
Canceled.
Yeah, it's been canceled. If you don't like that comment, don't at me. Don't give a shit.
I think there's all of 5 people that would say, "Hey, leave Iron Fist alone."
Surprisingly enough, I was reading Twitter the other day when they made the news, and people were just like, "Can't believe that they did Finn Jones like this. They did him dirty." I'm like, nobody enjoyed this show in the first place. It sucked. Anyway, we're not talking about garbage. We're talking about the opposite of garbage.
Right.
A diamond.
We don't know yet.
Well, I think for Adam and us, we agree.
We'll
for
have to
Kate,
wait. Yeah.
This is a to be continued.
See.
This is like a cliffhanger on a 90s sitcom.
That's right.
Yikes.
Are the parents going to get divorced or remarried? I don't know. Isn't that like a 90s sitcom?
But at the same those are the 2 choices: divorce or remarry.
Yeah. Or renewal of vows.
Right.
I don't know. You have to find out in season 2, episode 1, when they come back after their year hiatus.
Yeah, right. And the wife is played by a different actress.
What is this? Fresh Prince of Bel-Air?
I don't know. I'm thinking of Growing Pains, or I'm just.
There's a couple of those turnarounds. Yeah.
Yeah, Fresh Prince.
Yeah.
Did they do that in Family Matters too? Didn't they replace Winfrey? No, maybe not.
I don't remember.
I don't know. Was there and also Family Matters sounds right, and Family Ties.
Family Ties.
I feel like they often replace children. teenage children.
Really? I feel like the kids were always sort of like I don't know. I guess
I don't even remember which one Family Ties was in comparison to Growing Pains.
Yeah, and Family Ties was a little older.
Yeah.
Alex
I'm so young.
You're
I
very.
I remember
young.
Battlestar Galactica as a young child.
Yeah. As a young child.
20 years ago.
Oh, we did a show the other night, and a woman was talking about having a conversation with her 16-year-old son. She's like, he recently got into The Office, and he's been binge watching The Office. And we were like, I said he recently got into it, and then someone pointed out he's fucking 16 years old. Like it wasn't on when he was not born when it was popular.
Were you just like, hey, your son's gonna love Parks and Rec?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let him finish The Office first.
Yeah.
Then get into Parks and Rec.
And then 30 Rock, and then Kimmy Schmidt.
Oh God, yeah. There you go. He's just got a cycle of just complete joy to be in his youthful shoes to relive that magic
Reliving
again.
it. Oh, I would love it.
Gosh. Well, we need to get into some of the details
Yes.
about this show. And so one of the things that we always have to talk about is the theme song, because there's a lot of unique intricacies that we have for the BoJack theme song. And so to kick us off with his thoughts and opinions, I'm going to turn it over to Adam.
Yeah, it's a theme song, but there's not much singing in it because it's mostly just all music. I don't know, like who is there? I know that the Group Love does the outro, but I wasn't sure who does.
It's the keyboardist from the Black Keys, or the drummer.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. It's a really cool intro. It's obviously all takes place in basically his house essentially, but I think we talked about this before, where it's like there's a constant transition of characters. So every season they refresh it. I think in one particular season it gets very psychedelic. I think that's the 4th season. And I love it. I think it's like I actually almost watch it every time just because of how it changes between seasons and changes through the season itself.
Yeah.
So especially if you watch the 5th season, there is a huge, because like it starts with it empty and then they start adding characters and then they reduce characters and even like the party aspect of it, they add like characters from that particular season. Like Turtle Top shows up and now Pickles is in it. And then he always falls into the pool at the end. And it was actually interesting. My boyfriend brought up, he was like, I wonder if it's going to be like, will that be the actual end of the show? Which could be kind of interesting. Although it opened with a party too. So it would be like, I'm like interested to see which way it goes. I'm like, I'm pretty sure he'll be fine. Maybe?
You never
Question
know.
mark. But yeah, no, that's my take on the intro.
I love the song, and that was in rewatching the first episode 13 times. Every time I was delighted by the intro song. And then I read more about it, and it's like a Black Keys guy, and I love the Black Keys, so I was like, oh, makes sense.
Really sold the show got sold to Kate on the idea that the Black Keys guy did the theme song.
Part of I was like, well, he was involved. All right, okay. There's got to be something to this.
I respect his taste in music, and now I'm on board.
Yeah. But it's a really poppy, like, like you said, the visual of him, and it's also this interesting difference between the animation of the show and then like the animation of the intro that is almost a little bit more, I guess, modern, and because you could picture that same shot of like one person and then a moving background behind them in non-animated
I know you're talking
film
about
and television.
Right. Mostly like indie movies where it's supposed to be like the world's moving without them. Yeah.
Right.
It's like their growing up montage that they have.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like
what's it? Imogen Heap and fucking what's his name sitting at like a table wondering what happened to his life.
And it's just somebody with a vocoder and it's like, where are you? What the hell?
Yeah.
Is going
It brought me back to my
on?
OC
Zach
roots.
Braff really fucked up indie movies for at least like 5 to 10 years. I did love that movie in college.
I did too.
And then I'm like, wait a minute.
Garden
No.
State?
Yeah.
Everyone loved that.
Everybody
movie.
loved Garden State.
Really
Yeah.
meant something to all of us.
Yeah.
That we could go back and then be like, wait, why the fuck was I so angsty watching this when I was like 18 to 21?
I think we're just all angsty in general. But yeah,
That's
I
all
love
right.
that intro. I don't watch it every time, but I should. Now I'm going to. Now
Yeah,
that
and it really
it changes.
It definitely was the season 5. I feel like season 4 they also did that because like Holly Hawk gets added in and out.
there's a whole intro that they have in the second season when BoJack goes to meet a long lost lover, Charlotte.
Yeah.
Where they replace it with the father figure that's in that family, and they do an entire theme song that's just based around
Oh my
him
God.
as the
Kyle,
character.
Kyle and the kids. It's so fucking
Kyle and the
good.
kids, and so they do these they do these refreshes all the time. It constantly changes, and I had a moment the other night when I was watching it where I accidentally skipped the intro, and then it had just begun, and it was different. And I saw a new character, and I went, oh, I gotta back this up and rewatch this thing now. Like I constantly will go back and watch it.
Yeah,
It's really good.
It really does set up what the show is gonna be like too. So especially like as we'll talk about the animation style, but like the idea that you're gonna watch a series, like watching and seeing the art, you'd be like, wait, how is this gonna be a serious show about trauma, depression, the human experience? And I think the intro does a good job of setting that up, essentially.
Because it really does give you sort of a day in the life of BoJack. From the moment that he gets up and dealing with other people and how he copes with this through alcohol and different abuses that he has. And then it kind of transitions into this sort of self-destructive behavior. I love the fact that as sort of the party montage in that day in his life, you see just more bloodshot eyes, and they just kind of deepen to the point where then like one eye's kind of like half open. And it's always interesting to see sort of that finale where he kind of like splashes into the pool and then has everybody then looking at him, because there's so many moments where I feel the BoJack character himself wants and craves that attention, but also doesn't want the responsibility of having that attention and any of that fame. Like, he wants to be loved, but he doesn't want to do anything to get that love.
Yeah.
Or he doesn't want to do anything to maintain that relationship that has to deal with love. He just simply wants people to give it to him without him having to do any work whatsoever, which is really narcissistic.
Yeah. I was going to say that's like the classic narcissist, fame character in any show, I guess. That's like,
well, on the flip side, he's also incredibly insecure when that love comes from a place of not just wanting to adore him for his fame. So like any character that ends up, I mean, they do that a lot in season 2 where Wanda and him have to go back and forth on whether they love each other. And it's really interesting to like, I mean, I think there's lots of people that exist that are like externally confident, but internally completely insecure.
and I think it can be a driver for people who want fame who can't have intimate love, like you're not looking for that. You're looking for I think about it in performing sometimes too. There are people who are much better at performing and just having a whole audience of faceless people love and adore
Validate
them from
them,
afar. Validation. But then if it comes to a face-to-face conversation, then they can't handle that. But yeah, he wants
Hey, I'm trying to get better at that, Kate. Jesus.
It's mostly Adam I'm talking about. He's just very awkward in one-on-one conversation.
It took me years to be able to accept a compliment after a show.
Yeah.
Because I either I didn't want to hear it or I didn't want to believe it. Coming from a complete stranger, I didn't know how to deal with that type of praise or validation. And it's challenging. I'm not saying that, hey, look, I get up on stage and like every show's a masterpiece, but there were a couple very early on that were fun, and people would be very nice and be very kind and say that was great. And I'd be like, no, it wasn't.
You're like, no, it wasn't, Mom. Shut up.
Yeah, exactly.
Mom's always wrong.
God, you're the worst.
You're the worst, Mom. Thing that I find very interesting about this theme song and this intro really is that it's dedicated animation that you're not going to see anywhere else in the show. As Adam has mentioned, they continually change and update this to reflect some of the characters, which there's no actual roll call for any of these characters. There's no, here's this person and here's what they look like and here's Todd Chavez underneath it. But that visual roll call is there, and as it evolves, it's very rewarding as a watcher, as a viewer, to be able to see that kind of update and go through its paces. The music is very stylized. It's almost like sad jazz.
Yeah.
It's like sad jazz and house music kind of had a baby. And they were like, how do you feel about that? You're like, I feel good because I'm kind of upbeat, but man, that brass kind of hits at the end and I'm like, ooh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
It's it's enjoyable. It does really set the mood in terms of what you're going to get into, because a lot of the brevity of this show is sort of just living in some of those depressing moments, letting something kind of resonate, and ultimately something that I don't think I'd ever seen in a cartoon up to this point is just being very human. And this clearly is a cartoon that is intended really for adults. There is no kid appeal. You should not let your children watch this show.
No.
And we should also probably mention that when we kind of, as we continue and get into this, if you're not aware with this, we're obviously going to have a bunch of spoilers.
Yeah.
That are going to kind of come up. So we'll try to limit them as much as possible.
Less so from Kate, but probably mostly from
Yeah. If you haven't seen the first couple episodes, don't listen to me talk, because I will spoil the shit out of those. I've got plot points up the ass.
Everything is like, that reminds me of the second episode.
It's good. It's great to have Kate's perspective on this, because I think that Kate's already been sold on the show, and all we're doing is just doing a great job of reinforcing why
You
she
really
should continue
are.
to watch.
I mean, as soon as you guys leave, I'm watching this show. More of it.
Also, Kate has written on a piece of paper that says, "If you could get out now, I'd like to continue to watch BoJack."
Yeah.
Very rude, but also very well done.
Yeah, how do you feel about a podcast where we just turn the show on and it's like mystery theater,
Mystery Science Theater 3000?
Yeah, but just audible, not a visual of it.
Okay.
You just listen to us talk at the television.
So it's just watching it with like a director's commentary?
Yeah.
Even though that we didn't direct or do any of the work on the show?
Right.
Yeah, I'm up for it.
It's a commentator's commentary.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who doesn't want that?
I like that.
Yeah.
I'd love to kind of get your impression on the animation style for the show. The animation style is very unique. It's very interesting. And so, Adam, I wanted to get your impressions about what you thought about the animation.
I actually thought it might have been a hold up to people getting into it like the first or second season, because without the like critically amazing writing that they're doing, I don't necessarily know. I think the animation style is very unique, but if you didn't have a good show to back it up, I think that could serve as a detriment, actually, because it would be very jarring to people that were just like watching a smoother cartoon show, or like watching a cartoon show in general. Because like when I think of like The Simpsons or Family Guy or Futurama, what have you, like those are really smoothly drawn. Like the artwork is very focused on the animation, whereas I think, and I love all the character designs, it's just a very unique and different style that's not built around that like 3D digital smoothness now that I think a lot of shows are pulling out. Even like your Rick and Morty's, like everything just has a lot more like, frame quality. Like you can see how much was gone into it. But I think to the design choices are great. And I think at the end of the day, you don't need that much investment in the animation in terms of the actual like execution of it versus the paneling. So what I mean by that is like Animals, I think, is an HBO show that also has like a very similar style. Even Archer, like it's very stilted. It's not like, it still looks cool. There's lots of interesting, they choose to use 3D imaging when they can, but like you're not watching it for like a wow, that's so beautiful sort of thing. It's not a Miyazaki film. Like it's just like we're choosing a unique stance on how to visualize this, but we're really focused on the conversation that's going on.
It's kind of like that Flash animation style.
Exactly.
That you see, that Archer originally did start with.
Right.
Before it kind of evolved and they upgraded and they changed some of the software, but they still retain that style and that kind of focus, despite the fact that now they've got like way nicer software.
Right.
Same with South Park. They
Exactly.
did a lot
I
of
was
the
just
exact
thinking
same stuff too.
Yeah.
And so good point. I really like that.
Well, and it's funny because if you correlate how good the animation style gets with the show quality, it pays to stay lower, because when you think of The Simpsons and especially Family Guy now, they're shitty, like in terms of actual quality of show. Whereas all these other ones that are thinking more around the stop motion or like the Flash animation are great because they're not focused on that, or they're not overindulging in that.
Right.
Well, I was wondering if it was like a purposeful choice to make it look very simplistic. I don't, maybe so that you're focused on the dialogue and the content, because for a newer watcher, you're it's just like, oh, those are shitty looking birds. Or just, but what's interesting to me too is I don't know, like the animation of Princess Carolyn dress. I don't know. It's like it can be a little distracting, I guess, at first until you get really invested in the characters.
And they definitely have invested more over the seasons, I think, because especially if you watch the first episode or so, like it is even me going back to those, it feels it feels lower quality.
Okay, yeah. So I was wondering if that was a purposeful choice to say like, we're not gonna like a stylistic choice. We're not.
I agree with the both of you. I think that there are some moments that the artwork could potentially be a barrier to entry for some people. I know for me, I didn't really understand first and foremost why they had like this very like bright colored animation style with sort of some of these interesting looking anthropomorphic characters. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until I finally like sat down and realized like, oh, these are just sort of a vehicle for this larger story, for everything that they're talking about. And to Adam's point, like they're not languishing, they're not living in the luxury of well done animation, you know. But Hannah Walt's style, I think over time is something that really did grow on me. Mm-hmm. If you look, some characters are very simplistic, you know, very like simple like slight shading, but like solid colors for certain parts of them. And then you look at BoJack's head, and it has this like almost watercolor texture that's on the side of it. And there's something about that contrasts like the diamond or like the shape that he has on his nose, which is very precise, very thick outlined. I don't know what it was, but I love it now. I love seeing that style. I look and I pay attention when they animate him moving his head, his jaw, when they do everything. And it actually, it reminds me of our guest that we had last week. His name is Rory Lucy. He has a book that came out last month that's called Jonesy, 9 Lives on the Nostromo, which takes place and it talks about the cat Jonesy from the movie Alien and sort of how that cat's story runs parallel. And if you've listened to last week's episode, Rory talks a lot about the fact that he used a watercolor gradient technique and then changed the opacity within the different cells of the book to kind of have that watercolor look and feel to it. And I feel like they selectively isolate pieces of characters to apply that. And I don't know why it's so strategically placed, but it is. And when you find it and when you see it, it's really beautiful to look at. Yeah. And I've now Hannah Walt's style and the characters I've fallen in love with. I really enjoy.
The designs are like the main character designs are excellent, especially to like, I think Princess Carolyn and BoJack are just very iconic designs now, which is great. Yeah. I actually, and even like Vincent Adult Man, like I actually went for Halloween as Princess Carolyn, and my boyfriend went as Vincent Adult Man.
Stop it! Are you serious?
Yeah,
I loved the Vincent Adult Man, just the whole concept and idea, and there's still part of it that feels unresolved to me.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, I want to know. Like I'm dying to know, but they did such a great job with these characters that are so interesting. And again, just like very isolated textures. I even think like Vincent Adultman, like I think his trench coat had like texture.
And it has like a puff to it because obviously there's 2 other children.
Yeah.
So, but it's little like to your point, and I forgot about that whole watercolor-esque mark on. But and you're like, I was like, yeah, that's right. It's a lot of the details that really matter.
Yeah.
Even like and like clothing design too. So like Diane obviously changes her clothes in the 5th season is because she's trying to reinvent herself.
And her hair.
Right. And it's like it's really interesting because that like all these looks, and especially from a cosplay perspective, like that they're so perfectly emulatable and like that's so cool. That like that series would stick out so much just in terms of design.
And even when I see people do cosplay of BoJack where it's that awful horse head mask and like a blazer and a pair of jeans, I'm like, that's well done, but that's also really freaky.
Right. Yeah. Well, someone literally, there's like a photo, I could probably send it to you guys after this. There's a photo of someone who actually like built out a face. Like it's more terrifying. I'd rather people just wear the mask.
There's got to be a hybrid. There's got to be some middle ground where it's not horribly distracting or it's not freaky to look at.
Because it ends up looking, I don't know, have either of you seen Sorry to Bother You?
No.
I won't spoil it, but like if everyone's listening that's watched it, like it looks like that. It's like
Oh.
there's like stuff in that movie that you'd be like, what the fuck? Like,
Okay.
Yeah.
What's sorry to bother you about?
It was a movie. I forget who.
It's partially about code switching.
Yeah. Well, so it's such a weird like hyper stylized
recent?
movie. Yeah.
This
Yeah.
sounds very
Came out like a
familiar.
month or two, like maybe 2 months ago.
Oh, okay.
And it's like a guy gets
Oh,
on
yeah. Okay, yeah. I haven't seen it.
One
but
of the
now
actors
I'm
from
remembering.
Atlanta.
Got
Yeah.
it.
It just
Yeah.
like it really it's hard to explain. It's just
Yeah.
such a great movie.
I mean,
to
I
watch,
saw the
though,
preview
yeah.
and yeah. But
That's not. I said that's perfect to tie this in. Like the preview of that movie doesn't even
get
do it
into.
justice. Yeah.
Got it.
Okay.
But you know that it's going to be some. It's going to play with. I don't know. It's not going to just be like a.
Yeah, it's
two-dimensional-
very like visual. It's a little. It lives in like it's like a fantasy
Fantastical.
world.
Right,
Exactly.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Exactly.
Okay.
But that like getting to the animation of BoJack Horseman, talking about how disturbing it would be to see someone cosplay any of the characters. It does take some getting used to. I feel like to watch the humans and animals side by side.
Especially romantically.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because you're like, well, exactly. Every time BoJack like fucks some lady, he gets puts
It
up-
is very
I'm just like,
weird.
I can't. That's not. I mean, I just don't.
I'm
not-
just so glad they don't talk. Like that was actually the best choice the show ever made. Is like this is just it. Like no one in the world thinks it's
Yeah.
weird. They don't
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
explain it at all.
Yeah.
It's just like
It's how it is.
everyone's just a person, even though some of them look like animals. Or
Yeah.
like what is funny is they balance that with like there are more animal-esque
Yeah.
anthropomorphic animals. So there are some that like own like what is it? Well it's Herb Kazaz's like bear who it was actually Brent, our friend Brent, who pointed out that it's a Care Bear.
Right.
Which I thought was fucking hilarious. I didn't
Yeah.
even think about that.
Yeah.
But like it only talks in groans. So it's like
Right.
certain people have command of an English language,
And
other people don't.
Yeah.
It's we've talked a bunch about some of these characters.
Yeah.
And so we have sort of a core character list that we've kind of talked about with BoJack, Diane, Princess Carolyn. We have Mr. Peanut Butter and Todd Chavez. And so I wanted to kind of throw this out. Was there somebody that you kind of, as you were watching this, was there somebody that was maybe a stand-in for you that you identified with the most, that you really enjoyed watching? Or was there somebody that you were like, I don't know that I like this character?
Mm-hmm.
I think like especially first season BoJack, a lot of like the romantic stuff that occurred, especially with him and Diane, like for some reason that really stuck out to me and resonated with me. I think most of BoJack's character doesn't really fit like what I would construe myself as or how I think I like come off to people, but in general I thought that whole like the more that they kind of stayed on a relationship arc during the first couple of seasons and then they moved more towards like family drama in the later seasons.
Right.
So that I think really stuck out. And then really it was also Princess Carolyn because like her whole like I actually have a poster in my apartment. I got it from Andrew. He got it for me for Christmas, which was like get your shit together. Like I had that conversation with myself a couple of years ago, especially after getting out of like a long-term relationship and like not really knowing what was right for me and like if I liked people and if they liked me back. And then it was like get your shit together. Like you gotta get your shit together. You're like gonna just focus on your job. You're gonna do this and da da da. And all of her episodes in particular always like I think it's the 4th season with Ruthie where she like it's like the future version of her.
Yeah.
Her like she's the great grandma and like she just
yeah.
has this no good incredibly bad day. And it's like those mean so like as I'm just like they're so great. Like I don't think I've ever really fully experienced a lot of that, but like that connects to me and I'm like, oh, this feels too real. Or like the whole episode is fantastic. It's actually one of my favorite like standout episodes, just from an emotional standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And that Ruthie episode, and even the callback that they have in season 5, where she's like, no, don't worry. Like this is gonna get better.
Right.
There's a point to all of this, and that to me, just even thinking about that, just sort of that illusion or just that idea that at some point, like these people find solace, like they find happiness at some point, because watching these characters, they're either way too overeager and happy, Todd,
Right.
or they're just a miserable wreck to juxtapose as BoJack.
Right.
And everybody kind of then hovers somewhere kind of in the middle, with dealing about stuff. So, Kate, was there anybody that you felt?
Well, it's funny that you said you identify with Princess Caroline, because I would say like, yeah, you should. I mean, not. I'm not talking romantically necessarily, but I meant more like business wise. Like, I feel like you're like, get it done. I loved, again, I'm the newer watcher, but like when she and BoJack break up, and 2 seconds later she calls him, but as his agent.
Yes.
I thought like, yeah. So she's kind of the just like get it done woman. I know she goes through more, romantic trials and tribulations as the show goes on, but I love her character. But also, Mr. Peanut Butter reminds me of some guys I've dated. So I immediately identify with him.
It's really impressive how they built up his relationship side of things. Cause like, so, you're going to get hit with spoilers too, unfortunately.
That's fine.
But
hit me.
That like, if I just rewatched right before the 5th season came out, I watched all of the previous seasons, and watching it, and which will be a great experience for you, is you really see how they build up Mr. Peanut Butter's and Diane's journey. Because like even in the first season, they talk about the ball pit. Because they wanted a ballroom, they gave a ball pit, and then they bring that back in the 4th season of the sort of like Beauty and the Beast book book room, whatever you call it.
Library,
thank you.
Book room.
Where's that book room? Where people
Barnes
read
and Noble.
books in. But
you've been watching too much television.
And even in that, like the whole, I don't want to go down the whole point of, but like they're like, we're a magic eye, and she's like, I'm just so tired of squinting, and so they end up getting a divorce, and like that scene is so emotionally heavy, and like I think anyone that's ever been in a relationship, or even if you love the person to death, like but it's not right, like you've got like that's a critical point where you have to be able to like willingly admit that this is not the right fit. But then you have to deal with that too, which is why it's like everything is so earned emotionally in the show. So it's like for any of the characters, even like Todd having an asexual coming out, like
right.
All of these are experiences that I think people have had to explore in some capacity. So it's really hard to choose just one, because each of their journeys are so reasonably connected to the human experience kind of idea.
Right.
And I think like just off the bat, the character I liked the most right away was Todd. Like I feel like he's that's probably not
no, I think that's
unpopular.
Like intended. Yeah.
Right. He's just sympathetic and I mean not totally sympathetic, but
because he's the human.
Right.
Maybe that's it.
I mean,
I'm racist
I think
against animals. Animalist?
Yeah. It's just classist. Classist? I'm not sure.
Beingist?
Beastus?
Anthropomorphicist?
Yeah.
There you go.
Like that.
A couple more weeks on that giggle show.
Giggles?
Yeah.
We're gonna workshop all of these.
I'll workshop
you
all.
are
yes.
golden. I think and you bring up a good point about sort of the Todd attachment or just identification. I think that there are parts in my life where I definitely probably identified more with Todd and sort of his enthusiasm and his willingness to like throw himself into something and care and support about other people. And then there's definitely a part of me that identifies with BoJack with sort of the selfishness, the desire to want to do something, but at the same time kind of feeling like forces are working against you. And then there's another part of me that identifies with Diane, where I'm just like, is the work that I'm doing good?
Yeah.
Am I okay with what I'm doing? Is the cause or my focus something I'm happy with? And that I continue to volley back and forth. Even the Princess Carolyn stuff, for the reason that you said, like, like the business focus and drive. What is so great about this show is that almost at any point in time, I can sit there and be like, I 100% see myself in all of these different characters. And even Mr. Peanut Butter.
Yeah.
There are moments where you see Mr. Peanut Butter kind of have that moment where he realizes, and I do this every once in a while because I'm super guilty of it, where I might not be listening or I might not be as attentive as I need to be to something. And then a conversation will happen and I'm like, oh fuck, I have not done a good job with this. And I need to just admit it and be okay with it, with that admission, and figure out how to, pivot off of that and what comes next.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that like his sort of fourth season, fifth season turn was very strong in the sense that like he wasn't only just that positive character, and because they show all of his past like the fifth season really gives him
that episode in the fifth season,
the Halloween episode.
Yes,
that Halloween party is so it's basically just like it's 4 different. So he obviously was married to Diane, then got a divorce. He was also married to Jessica Biel, which is fucking hilarious, and then married to Katrina, who was the other character that really was. And like they do such a great job on the show, which is like I don't get like it's called out with continuity.
Yeah,
they track like year by year what happened, when it happened. Every reference is perfect. And so it's a Halloween episode where it's the same Halloween party that happens every X number of years. And they show all 4 different parties where the same thing happens because Mr. Peanut Butter tends to only date or like loves relationships when they're fun, new, fresh, and the women are usually young. And it's such an interesting reveal because it doesn't necessarily make him a bad person or like he's not making bad decisions. He's just not even realizing the decisions that he's making until you see, and you don't either as like a viewer until you see all of them together and you realize why those relationships aren't working out. And then again, human experience or thinking about your own life, it's like there's tons of friends that I know, they're like, oh, wait a minute, I only date, like to your point, you may have only dated Mr. Peanut Butters.
Yeah.
So
I've either been the Mr. Peanut Butter or dated the Mr. Peanut Butter in most of my relationships.
And it's weird that we're doing this and you're eating peanut butter.
Yeah.
You could not.
I have a type, so, and I'm not allergic to peanuts.
This week sponsored by Justin's Peanut Butter. Justin's Peanut Butter.
I like just Skippy.
Is there really a Justin's Peanut Butter?
Yeah, it's the kind that comes...
Oh, I thought you were like weirdly just choosing a name out of a hat.
It's the, like if you ever get the snack box at Starbucks, the protein box, there's apples and Justin's Peanut Butter. It's trying to be all natural. It's not though.
It also just sounds oddly sexual. Like Justin's like, oh, do you want some Justin's Peanut Butter?
Why does that sound sexual?
Because I'm like, whose peanut butter is it? What's so good about it? Like, is it
Justin's.
weird? Like, is there jizz in it for some reason?
Whoa.
I don't know. I just think
you
about...
took that to another
Hold on.
place.
Pause for 2 seconds. Who ejaculated in a jar of peanut butter in your life?
Justin did. Maybe it's just bringing back bad memories, I guess.
Yeah.
I just, for some reason, like what to say it's someone's, because then I think of butter, peanut butter, I think of creamy, I don't know.
Oh my God. You have so many associations. Yeah. So growing up, we only ate Adams, I think was what
You only ate Adams peanut butter.
I only ate Adams peanut butter.
Why are there so many people that own peanut butter? Like ownership of these peanut butter.
I mean, Skip has peanut butter, his own.
Jif?
Yeah.
They're not,
it's pronounced
Skippy's
It's pronounced
GIF.
GIF. But it's GIF, but it's GIF. GIF peanut butter.
Peter Pan's peanut butter.
Peter Pan's.
Just a lot of personal ownership when it comes
and it's
to
only
the
men
butter.
if we hear this.
What?
It's only men. Justin, Adam.
Like you
Skip.
Need Susan's peanut butter, or like
I'm gonna make my own.
Kate Syme's is peanut butter.
That sounds terrible.
We're gonna workshop this on the Giggle Ship.
On the Giggle Ship.
On the Giggle Ship.
So we're now at the point where we have an opportunity to kind of talk about the plot. There are 5 seasons of this show.
Yeah.
There's
too much to just be able to encapsulate.
And Kate hasn't seen any of it, so we don't want to.
We're spoiling the shit out of.
You're not, because I've read.
Oh, okay, good. Oh, that's right. You read all the. Yeah, no,
I've
read the
it
recaps.
all.
That's
I know
right.
what happens, but I haven't lived the.
The emotional
yet.
moments will still, because they hit as heavy every time for me.
They are.
No. I'm excited to live.
It's the dialogue that's like what makes the show.
Totally.
I mean, I think to this point, there to the emotional moments and the dialogue that we have here. There's a lot that we obviously learn about our titular character, BoJack Horseman, and sort of his journey, his progression through fame, being in and out of it, the responsibilities that he has to the public, to the people who are very close to him in his life. Ultimately, this kind of really boils down to the question, is BoJack a good person? Which I think is the most loaded question to ask. But I just kind of want to get our opinions about this, just because there's a lot to consider, since so much of this heavily focuses on him and his destructive tendencies. But there are also moments where you can really see him shine, where you can really see compassion and care for other people. And so I just want to see if we have a tally sheet of good versus bad. Where do you think you fall on the is BoJack a good horseman?
Well, the tally sheet's a good way to think about it, because, and they make this theme very apparent throughout the show of like you're not good or bad, you just make choices and you choose to make the right or wrong choices in every situation that you do. So in one situation you might make the right one, in another situation you might make the wrong one. I think in general BoJack ends up on the wrong sides of the situations, but it's mainly not due to him wanting to make bad choices, but it's due to his narcissistic personality, which everything that's happening to him is always more important than everyone else's situations, emotions, what have you. So in like season 1, he tries to, break up the wedding. In season 2, the whole thing happens with Penny on the boat.
Right.
His old girlfriend, Charlotte's daughter.
Who looks just like Charlotte.
Right. I know.
Which is such a creepy...
The whole thing is just very, it's a lot. And it's like, then that comes back in the 5th season.
Right.
And like, there's a whole great ending. Like, you haven't seen it yet, but when they do the Filbert premiere, there's a fantastic confrontation between BoJack and Diane. And it's like, it's actually like, I think one of my favorite episodes from a narrative perspective because of that, like, Jesus Christ, like this conversation is so intense and like you wouldn't expect to find this on a show that like has tremendous amounts of hilarious gags and punchlines throughout every episode.
Right.
Yeah.
But they know when to turn it on and turn it off like immediately. Very similar, like we were just before we started this, we were talking about Insecure.
Yeah.
You're the Worst.
Yeah.
Like more Rick and Morty. They managed to like funnel out and carve out these amazing emotional moments. But the whole point of like I don't think there's like, because that's the other question is like deep down inside that comes up at multiple times.
Right.
And I think it's like deep down inside, I think BoJack is a narcissistic, selfish person, which leads to bad choices, which leads to him being a bad person.
There are so many characters like his, like the narcissist male title character. Because I think of like Breaking Bad, Walter White. Like I think of Tony Soprano, and I think of Ricky Gervais' character in The Office, where you're like, and there's so many more, and I'm blanking on all of them now. But
none are the worst. but it's
you're the worst.
Well, it's a tropish. It's a trope.
It's a trope.
Character,
yeah. Right. So where you're on this roller coaster of like, I see why you're acting like a total asshole right now. Like there's a phrase I love that goes, hurt people. So like I don't look, I'm not great at looking at even just people in life as all good or bad. I mean, I don't think that we do that in general.
Don't know like an evil villain in my life.
Evil. I mean, sometimes, but no, I mean, for the most part. So like, this is maybe a digression, but I work in a prison as a volunteer job. And so the people who I work with, I could look at and say like, you are in prison for a reason because you've done terrible things. And I could judge you only for that. But like, I look at, bringing it back to BoJack Horseman, like he's acting out of that narcissistic, it's almost like a disorder, I guess. And so, but then you see like the little glimpses into, he just wants love,
right?
Or he doesn't know how to get the things that he wants in a good way.
Well, if you see his family life, like in that, they show that a lot, and especially in the 4th season, they focus on the relationship between him and his mom. They don't spend a lot of time over the seasons with him and his dad. It's mostly him and his mom, and like. I really like that phrase, hurt people, because that's precisely where so much of
Beatrice's interaction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because she, at one point she has a quote where she says, you're broken and you don't deserve happiness.
Aww.
And you hear that and just, I mean, there are very few cartoons where I will sit, watch, and then feel devastated afterwards. BoJack is probably the number one, and the problem with it is that it is so enjoyable to watch this destructive behavior between these other people, that when Netflix is immediately like, do you want to watch another episode? I'm like, yeah, I want to be destroyed again. Please.
It's amazing how bingeable and addicting it is, given that every episode is very emotionally like, it's just exhausting. Like it's exhausting to watch the show, and especially when you get to like usually like episode 8 through 10 areas that like
Oof.
you get to more main climaxes.
Yeah.
It's every time it's just, but it's so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Um,
We like to be devastated.
right. I remember like a perfect situation is with the first season BoJack realizes he can't get back. He's not gonna be able to get together with Diane, so then he goes and is excited to like fall in love with Princess Carolyn.
Yeah.
And it's like I think I've like slightly been there in that terms of like maybe I love so and so just because something else isn't available, and then just to watch like her get excited and then come back and basically be told like there that like he's like we're not in love, like what do you like, let's just get over, because he gets a call about her pizzazz. Like it's just there's so many sequences where it's just fucking gut punch after gut punch, and like the way that and to the talent of the voice actors and even the animation, like it just hits every time.
So I'll say about Will Arnett, I think the thing that I love the most is really just kind of that gruff voice. and there's something about Fame in the 90s and him having this like 3-pack a day voice, which just communicates in some cases so much emotion behind it. Just mainly because of the writing and his delivery working together in this like tightly coupled fashion that it just blows my mind every time.
It's impossible to hear his voice now as voiceover without hearing BoJack. So he has like a Reese's peanut butter commercial now.
Right.
And I like it happens in like movie theaters, and it's fucking weird because I'm just like, wait, is BoJack real? Is that like are they using BoJack's voice now? And Amy Sedaris sells every fucking scene that she's in. Allison Brie's fantastic in both Glow and this. Like, it is like all-star voice acting. Like every time, like the way that they play off of each other, and like even like simple things of even like the tongue twisters. I think like Amy Sedaris' character always has a shitload of tongue twist. I love it was like the remake of Plane, Trains, and an Automobile, but it was like planes, trains, a trans, Panama Canal. Like it was just like, and they really, it's actually the real reason why I love the show is that it's so good at building in inside jokes. So like, you're going to get those things, or like the Mr. Peanut Butter, like, are you blank? Cause something.
Yeah.
There was one in the one in the Halloween episode where they're like, basically like, he's trying to tell someone, he was like, are you the song that's remade by this, but made popular by Ace of Base? Because don't turn around.
Yep. I love that. For Mr. Peanut Butter's delivery, and I love Paul F. Tompkins. I just such a joy to see him in this, because he's so excited and upbeat and delightful for everything. Like his voice is sort of like that warm greeting that you want every day.
Yeah.
And just to have him take these like long walks for a short punchline, every time I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna take that trip. I'm gonna take that trip because I love you, PFT, so much.
It never, and that's the thing is like there's a lot of shows that they build in their inside jokes and they blow them out, then they waste them, and it becomes annoying. Like that's SNL sketches to a T. But like, it's incredible to me how none of that really gets old. Like I think probably I think around the 4th season they were definitely like pulling the trigger on certain things that they didn't need to, and then by the 5th season it's like right back on track, and like it's just phenomenal to go back and watch and rewatch, and there's like always some new wordplay that you probably missed, which is and it's so rewatchable, the show.
The other thing, this is early on obviously, and maybe they do this a lot more, but that I noticed that they did was like set up a joke and then let it go for a really, really long time.
Yeah.
So the one I'm thinking of is Princess Carolyn's like, you know, when you said you didn't want to have a baby with me, and he's like, did I say that?
Oh my God.
And the cut to
did I say that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it just, you know, goes for like a solid minute. But the screen is only on Princess Carolyn and the woman with the baby in the stroller who he pushed over, and then you hear all the chaos going on. I love any show that will let a joke go for that long.
So you actually hit on a good word about chaos. So I always think about BoJack in terms of, is he a good person in terms of an alignment chart? I think that he is chaotic good. He has the best intentions. He has the best idea in terms of an outcome, but he has absolutely no regard for anybody else other than him in terms of meeting and achieving his ends. And that's chaotic good. Like I think, to a definition, is just how he operates. You know, there are moments where he will have genuine compassion for other characters, you know, especially Todd. You know, there are a lot of moments where, you know, he's just like, you are the best thing that I have unintentionally done.
Right.
And when he does that, you know, Todd is, you know, I was devastated. It was just one of those things that you just didn't expect him to be that emotional about it, to kind of have that delivery. But he does. And that's great. But then there are other moments, like with, again, you know, first season with Princess Carolyn, where he, you know, he's hopping in and out of relationships with her and coming back to it and saying like, I think this is something that I want right now. And I think it all kind of boils down to, and I know that Adam made this point earlier, you know, he doesn't know himself. Like, he doesn't understand himself or really kind of what he ever wants. And so as a result, he just continues to make choice after choice after new choice the entire time, with, again, no regard for anybody else. Because I do that all the time. That like what you explained is sort of the philosophy and the motto that I've continued to kind of live my life according to, is that if I make a choice right now, that's not a finite choice.
Right.
I always have an opportunity, like with taking a new job. That's great. If I really love this job, awesome. I'm happy. That's a place that I can focus on. I can do something. But if I don't like it, I have the personal agency to be able to say to myself, I need to get out of a bad situation. And I help to qualify all of that by having like conditions that I will write down in advance. Like, for a job, am I meeting or receiving these things? And if I'm not, then I know, again, to that scorecard, to that tally sheet, I know that I can say, hey, it turns out that this might not be the best thing for me. You know, I need to now make a new choice. You know, and as an improviser, just to say new choice is kind of a terrible statement to make. You know, so to have that ability to continue to make those new choices, I can do that. But I always know that ultimately I've defined what I'm going to continue to think of as successful. And those might change and they might evolve. It's never, you know, in stone. It's a work in progress, you know? The thing I don't do is that I never look back on it. And I'm just like, look how good I'm doing. Look how great I've been able to meet and achieve these things. I'm always like, oh, let me just throw another thing on the list of something that I either love or hate. And then I can judge myself against it some night when I'm trying to fall asleep at 2:00 in the morning. And I'm like, I wonder what would keep me up until 5.
Yeah. My life choices.
You know, but it's hard.
Yeah.
Well, right. It's fun to make. It's always like, it feels so liberating to make constant choices, and then it feels just as detrimental to your own probably psychological like safety around being like, did I make that right choice or not? Because people that you start dealing in bigger of like, I can change this when I want. You start changing it and you're like, oh shit, should I have changed that or not?
And trust me, there have been moments where I've gotten into situations where I've thought to myself, oh, I could make a new choice, but I can also just stay right here. And that's when you get that weird complacency and you start to think, maybe I do deserve where I am right now. And that's when all of a sudden just brain gremlins are just like, you're just going to take up space here. I'm not going to let you do this. Yeah. That's hard.
Well, that kind of gets into like BoJack, and I'm sure this gets much heavier as the seasons go on, but his depression and then self-medication, which is what like a lot of, you know, American adults and probably adults worldwide deal with.
Leave I'm not gonna just Americans alone.
Leave the rest of the world alone.
It's mostly America, but I feel like this is a theme, you know, just I don't know, the other day was World Mental Health Day, and there's all this stuff going on. So like, in terms of talking about this character as good or bad, and, you know, he's making this choice and then this choice, or he's languishing in this world or whatever, you just see him making so many choices that you think are against his own best interest, but then self-medicating. And you know, I don't know, I kind of firmly believe we all in modern society probably have low-level depression. So, you know, just little bits of it. And that's why a character like Mr. Peanut Butter, at least in the first season, you're like, God damn it, I wish I could be that.
Well, we're at like I always like think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I feel like luckily I think the people that do and feel and experience that, I think it's most people nowadays, because we've got computers to do this, we've got this to do that, like all of these things that would usually require, like if you think of the 1950s, like it would take like, I don't know, I'm making this shit up because I wasn't born then, but like
You
it takes like
were?
10
Wait,
hours.
what?
Takes 10 hours to make. I was actually talking about the original Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
40 years ago. No, like, but it took like 10 hours to make a meal, and like people just kind of, and it would like when you have a computer, you'd have to like write everything. Like when you go to work, like you basically take all of this extra labor out. And now I think our brains are just like, well, what the fuck am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
well, are you happy? And it's like, no.
No.
And then it's like,
Right.
well, why am I not happy?
Right.
And you've gotten rid of a lot of the noise, and I think that's why a lot of people are always like, well, what the fuck? Like your
Right.
brain just runs. To your point, like it's very easy. It's a lot easier to get
Yeah.
brain gremlins when you're not like constantly working and doing
Yeah.
something and having to be forced to go do something.
Right.
Right.
And what
That's-
your output at the end of the day is not like, I picked the peanuts from the field and I brought them back in and I made the peanut butter because I am Justin. But it's like,
Make me make sure to jizz in it. Justin.
that could be another product line for Justin.
Please-
Justin's
please.
Jizz at the
Jizz.
bottom, just like the yogurt.
Ooh, no. Or like the marshmallow.
Yeah, the
fluff.
fluff, exactly.
Yeah.
There are people that eat like marshmallow peanut butter sandwiches, which I find
I've heard of that.
weird.
I did as a kid.
Really?
Yeah.
What
For
was
like
the-
marshmallow?
lunch?
Yeah, marshmallow and fluff. Or fluff
Peanut butter
fluff,
and
Yeah,
fluff.
fluff. Peanut butter
Peanut
and
You just
butter
fluff.
got
Peanut butter
marshmallows
and
and fluff, and then put them in a.
fluff. Look, I'm real fat.
Yeah, what you can't see right now is Shauna's taking up the whole couch. My dad used to eat peanut butter and mayonnaise sandwiches.
That was another weird one. I used to eat just mayo sandwiches, but very, very delicate.
I
it was
would
like it was a
vomit.
fine glaze on top of the.
I'm
bread.
really sorry because I heard you say jizz mayo when I know you said just mayo.
Yeah, just mayo.
Given the topic of this conversation,
Hey, I was young. I was exploring. Doesn't taste.
There's
good. No, I
no-
didn't do that.
So I want to come to I think maybe our final question before I if you guys have any additional questions.
Sure.
But I wanted to ask, was there in particular an episode that you had that kind of above everything else kind of resonated with you, that sort of had like that impactful moment, sort of resonated on that emotional level that we've continued to talk about and discuss, that is very apparent within, like ingrained into the DNA of the BoJack Horseman show? And I don't know why I just called it the BoJack.
Well,
Horseman.
because that was a show in the
Right,
show.
exactly.
Oh, yeah.
That's a lot. I think actually, so emotionally, I think the best episode was when BoJack and Sarah Lynn go on a bender, and then she ends up dying at the end of the episode. I think that is a really meticulously done, like, and they've been building her character over three seasons, yeah. And it's like just super well handled, and their relationship, and like that breaks him for a couple of episodes. In terms of just like, again, like impact, like highlight episodes that I would just show to anyone to be like, these are the episodes that will really make you like, holy shit, I watched the show, is Brat Brat Pew Pew, the abortion episode. It is so fucking well done.
Yeah.
And then also the gun control episode. Like, took two incredibly, obviously, like interesting, very powerful topics to discuss, make them fucking hilarious, but tell very good examples of really, I mean, the show is very pro female, which is like it's another reason why I love the show, is that like they consistently err on the side of being like, women need more, they need more from this, like the whole, I don't know how to fully describe it without weirdly coming, like I'm trying to like be like, it's a great pro woman show, and they just do it by deftly writing, like it's very ingrained in the show. It's not like it's so subtle the way that they make certain points, and then obviously not so subtle in other cases,
Right.
but so devilishly like funny, that like you'd have to be a fucking idiot not to be like, oh, I see, this is like what's happening in real life parallels, like
Yeah.
So those are my big takeaways.
I can't, with any good conscience, recommend a specific episodes. That would be
Any background sight gags that you've seen so far that you like?
I was gonna say there are two especially that come to mind. One I already talked about, just the cut to the when he questions whether or not he says, I won't have a baby with you, or I don't want to have a baby with you. And it's like what we would do in improv. We'd say, cut to that moment. And they cut to that moment. They're on a street corner. She says, oh, look at that baby. Isn't it cute? He pushes baby in the stroller over, runs screaming. And then the shot is just, Princess Carolyn, this woman, and a baby overturned in a stroller for the next minute and a half while he screams and then gets in a cab and says, oh no, I'm just running from my girlfriend who I don't respect enough to have a baby with.
That's right.
And then like a flaming tire comes by and like it goes for so long. And I mean, as a modern woman in my middle-ish age, that's a familiar. Those conversations don't go that badly, but sometimes they're like uncomfortable,
especially when you're dating all those Mr. Peanut Butters.
Well, yeah. And apparently I've dated BoJacks
or those Justin Peanut Butters.
Just the Justin Peanut Butters. And then because I have the sense of humor of a 12-year-old boy, the conversation, again, this is the first season, that BoJack has with Sarah Lynn when he's trying to be her father figure for like an afternoon, and they go sitting on the park bench, and she's like, did you know this guy has ass cancer?
That's
right. And he's like, well, what made you think of that? And she's like, looks at the sunset, and it's just two hills. She's like, it looks like a butt, and the sun setting over the butt. Yeah, it's so dumb, but I'm like, I get it. And then something so dumb. These are little moments because I've just watched these, but where Todd has the idea to set up a Halloween store in January.
Yep.
And Mr. Peanut Butter is like, oh yeah, just like a year round. He's like, no, just January.
Just in January.
I don't know. There's because it's been a longer road for me to get into the show. Although I'm fully sold, I'm into it now. But those were some of the moments that I like laughed out loud, because so much of it I think is so clever, but not laugh out loud necessarily. So
right.
I like it when they dumb it down for me.
Oh, but you're not dumb at all.
Thank you.
I'm not. I
have low self-esteem.
You are incredibly intelligent and a very smart performer. I don't know why anybody would have to dumb anything down for you in any way.
I feel that about myself.
Okay.
These are the gremlins I get in my head.
Well, you can feel that way, but it's not true.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I want to say, for me, the episode that I recently watched the other night that had an emotional impact was Free Churro.
Which one was that?
It's in the 5th season. It is a non sequitur episode, and it's where you find out that BoJack's mother has died, and it's him giving her eulogy.
Oh yeah, I didn't know what the title. Oh god, that's such a great episode.
And it is brutal. I mean, because it's basically just a single shot of him in front of like a lectern, just sort of delivering this kind of like one-man play, eulogizing his mother and just sort of talking about her comments and how she would want to do this. And he talks a little bit about her final words to him.
Oh my
and
god!
Over the course of it, it has probably the smartest, most genius, poignant moment that occurs in television that I've ever watched, and just the delivery and the realization of BoJack's character in that moment is so incredibly profound and depressing at the same time. And I think just because of my personal experience, having lost a parent recently, it was and having an okay kind of complicated relationship with my dad, to see and kind of hear and watch something like that, because we didn't have a funeral for my dad. He just wanted to be cremated. And there's like a part of it that's like, do I just play this episode before I scatter ashes? Like,
wow.
Do like my sister and I just get together, because she loves the show as well.
Yeah.
And do we just watch this episode, or do I write it out and perform it? And then just do that. There was something so cathartic about watching that episode, and then him getting to the very end, and then just me being like, I was devastated, like watching it. I only watched it maybe a couple days ago, but it is something that still kind of weighs heavy on me, where I'm like, this was so smart, and the season had a trajectory, and then it sidestepped itself to deliver this episode, that almost came out of nowhere because you never really kind of learned that his mother had passed away at that moment. And he just has this like, one man kind of monologue, which is just, it's great. It's beautiful and it's brutal.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lot of experimental episodes, which I like. It's usually once a season, I think, starting in the second. Like the second season, the third season, it was the underwater episode.
Yeah.
I know there's one I considered the experimental episode to be the eulogy episode in the fifth season. I feel like the fourth season definitely has something. I can't put my finger on it. But it's like they take their time to completely focus on one thing only. And that's just like what it's like what you get. I guess like maybe in the second one, I can almost see it as like the celebrities and stars. Do they know things?
But there's a Todd only episode in season 2, right?
I think, yeah, Todd he definitely has his own in the fourth season, which is also a great episode of like him going back around, or like,
from what I read, one of the special episodes is Princess Carolyn's descendant.
Yeah, that's the Ruthie episode.
Yeah,
I mean, it's almost like there's multiple in a season now where they just say, this is the one thing we're going to do. Yeah. But that one's great.
Yeah.
There's also...
And they use that more as a framing device for the story that they tell.
Okay.
And so it's not just like them living in that time.
But my favorite is when they meta talk about it and they're like, Ruthie, I don't understand why you're having this B plot line. Like they make a subplot for BoJack and Diane for no reason, and she just like, it's like a show and tell, and she's just like, the computer teacher's like, why are you telling this plot line?
It's so good.
They did that again in the fifth season where they had Diane's therapist and then also BoJack's therapist and her wife talking about it, but they call him like Zoe. They call him something stupid. It's like BoJack the zebra or something like that.
Yes.
And then they redo like the entire opening to show you that it's Princess Diana. It's like the stupidest episode because they're trying to hide from each other what their clients' names are.
Oh.
It is it shows just so good. It's so funny. Like they just constantly toy and play with things that like you really have to watch the whole thing, because half the time the episodes wouldn't make sense. Like if you watch that episode without having the context of the show, you'd be like, what is... That's why it's always like the abortion and gun control episodes stick out, because like those are really, you could pitch those to somebody and like someone could watch them and be like, they're funny. Like but a lot of it is just layered on top of itself, which is very much Arrested Development and any other kind of like, probably even like Parks and Rec in some capacity. I actually haven't seen that much of it, at least like.
Oh, well, the tables are turned now.
I know.
Let's talk for an hour about Parks and Rec so I can seem smart. That reminds me of Community too. Like they used to do those
there's a lot of layers in terms of like building the backstory, the history.
Yeah.
Everything that we've been trained to add into scenes within the first like 30 seconds. These people have done this over multiple episodes and seasons to really kind of make it rich and rewarding. As Adam has mentioned, when they call back something in like season 5 that was introduced in season 2.
Yeah.
Like, oh fuck, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Like how did that happen?
Yeah.
And that's what makes the show.
There's actually
so
a really
rewarding.
funny Easter egg. I think it's in the third season. The Celebrity Stealing Club. There's like an extra part. They're like introduced. It's in the first season actually, because that's when he goes to visit Herb Kazaz. Like Todd gets picked up by them.
Yeah.
They show up in like the third season to steal something in the background with no mention of them whatsoever. But it's like such a great drop.
Wow.
God.
That's awesome.
So we obviously have very strong opinions about the show, and we're going to get to our opinions and whether or not we recommend this show or not in just a moment.
You're waiting with bated breath, I'm sure.
Yeah, right. Hey, but in the meantime, hey, guess what? Yeah, you listening right now. Turns out you have so many opinions and you love to share them on the internet. And so we are going to turn it over to longtime listener and friend of the show, Bobby Anthem, for this week's Love It or Hate It. Bobby, take it away.
This week's Love It is titled One of the Best Adult Animated Shows I've Ever Seen. It was written by Ball Droppin' 101 on October 14th, 2016. It says, while the first season wasn't fully developed in its characters and situations, I still enjoyed it very much and had developed a bit of an emotional attachment during the last 3 or 4 episodes. But nothing could have ever prepared me for seasons 2 and 3. which offered some of the most poignant insights into celebrity culture and the nature of depression for a multitude of characters, which had by the time become grounded in their own right, I have ever witnessed. I can't even put my thoughts into words for this review because I love this show so much, which is very surprising. I try to stay as formal as possible. I won't spoil anything, but there was a few different episodes in the past 2 seasons that made me cry, scream, hate, love, everything. This is really one of the few animated shows I can think of that brings on pure, unaltered moments of absolute emotion from the deep, dark places of my soul. I connected in ways I never would have thought possible to BoJack as well as a few other characters in the show. This is a must-watch for anybody and everybody. You just have to get past the first half of the first season to truly start to love it. Oh, and the show is also outstandingly funny. Worthwhile as a comedy alone. And our hated is not a hated. There's no hate for BoJack, so this one is called Motivational. It was written by Mason Barber on June 12, 2018. Mason wrote, "It is a great show with lessons, and it shows that not all rich people are happy."
Excellent. As always, everybody, Bobby Anthem, true gem of the world. Maybe we need to get him, if anybody does any character artwork for BoJack. I feel like he would be a character in BoJack. Bobby, you're going to have to let me know what kind of anthropomorphic character you would like to be. Because if he has opinions, it's something I want to be able to honor. BoJack Horseman, Adam, do you recommend or do you not recommend this show? And if you don't recommend it, remember, for any new listeners out there, you can give it the Roger Rabbit style dip, which erases it from the annals of cartoon history.
I mean, coming into this room, I was going to recommend it, and I'm still going to recommend it.
Awesome. Wonderful. Any final thoughts on the show?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know. Again, so I always tell this to people, is that watch to I think it's maybe the 4th or 5th episode of the first season. If you can get to the end of the episode where BoJack and Diane visit Boston and you aren't connected with it, then you don't know fucking comedy and you're a terrible person. I tell this actually to my friend Jason, and then he actually ended up loving the episode. Like after that, he's like, I actually like the show a lot post that episode. And so I just don't know how you can enjoy comedy, clever writing. Like there's so many bits. Like to me, the show isn't about like, well, I don't like cartoons. Like I know that's always like some kind of a hang up for people, but like you can't ask for a better like emotional comedy. Essentially, like it's a fantastic animated dramedy that I didn't think would ever actually exist.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Adam. Kate.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and recommend to myself and all of the listening public. But yeah, this discussion and just digging into it, because I am that person who clearly didn't give it the chance, but everything I've read now, what I've watched, and also hearing you guys talk about it, it sounds, I mean, and I've seen glimpses, and I might not go to sleep tonight. Just watching. You
can burn through the seasons fast. It's only 20 minutes an episode.
I know.
Yeah, 12 episodes a season.
Right. But let's do math on that.
I rewatched the entire run through leading up to the 5th season within like that week, like Monday through Thursday,
Holy shit.
And then watched it. I was working from home.
Adam, I have things to do. I have a job, and I have evening
you have to like,
obligations.
to be fair, you have to actually watch every episode versus like just having it on in the background.
Yeah, you can't do that. Yeah, but I highly recommend.
Gotcha. This is going to be a 3 for 3. Yeah. Another hat trick. I'm going to recommend BoJack Horseman. This is definitely a show that I think has so much heart and so much intelligence, and just really kind of shows an interesting satirical side of fame and the destructive nature, but also is truly compassionate and does a great job of handling tender moments with such care, but then contrasting it with something that is just so emotionally devastating, and then flipping back and forth between those pieces, almost like the world's most brutal game of chess. You know, it's it could not be more of a joy to watch this show. If you're not watching this right now and you've made it all the way through this episode, turn this show off and go listen to it, and go watch the show. If you don't have a Netflix account, I'm not going to give you my password. So you should sign up for Netflix. We're also not sponsored by Netflix. But if you're listening to Netflix, we would love to talk. So that's going to do it. That is going to do it for BoJack Horseman. So thank you, Adam, and thank you, Kate, for coming on the show. If anybody is interested, Adam, in finding you online, and do you have anything that you would like to plug, where could they find you?
Yeah, if you're in DC, I DJ once a month at the Gay Bar Trade. We do Control. It's an electro pop party, but probably for more people that would just be listening, I am actually on a podcast called Homo Superior, where Ryan Krull was on the show before. He's one of the folks that also does the podcast with me, where a bunch of gay dudes talking about X-Men, comics, nerddom, and having a really great time, and talking, I guess, a lot about jizz and peanut butter based on... we really take a unique turn on a lot of current events.
Yeah, trends.
So definitely listen to us. We're on like Twitter. It's Homo Superior on SoundCloud, iTunes, all that jazz.
We will link all of this in the show notes as well.
And we also did Short Story Long, but I haven't been doing that in a while with my friend. But listen to the backlog. They're really good.
Excellent. Thank you, Adam.
Kate? Yeah, just Google me, I guess. Kate Symes. There's so much online.
So much content.
There's a lot of content. I have a show coming up November 16th, a couple shows with Washington Improv Theater. That's kind of my primary outlet, is improv. But, if you're really interested, just friend me on Facebook and I'll tell you what I'm doing.
There you go.
Watching BoJack Horseman for now.
By the time this comes out and people hear this, you will have blown
I will
through
watch
all 5
all
seasons,
of it, for
and you
sure.
will be ready to have this conversation with everybody who's going to at you.
That's right.
About
At
this
me so we can have this conversation over again.
Excellent. Well, you heard him on this week's show, Bobby Anthem, our dear friend. You can hear him on his paranormal podcast, Inhuman Experience. You can find them on Twitter at IEXP_podcast, and you can find them on Spreaker and SoundCloud. He's also the occasional third co-host on the THT Movie Review Podcast, which broadcasts every Saturday night at 11:30 Eastern Standard Time on Mixlr. And you can find him on Twitter at Bobby Anthem. Send him a message, show him some love. He's simply the best. As for me, you can find me. I do live improv comedy in Washington, D.C. with a group that's called Nox. That's NOX ! You can find tickets and times witdc.org. I'm also on Twitter and Instagram at Sean Paul Ellis. If you're looking for Dave, you can find him on Twitter at Dr. ClawMD, and you can find all of his writings, Nerdist.com, Collider.com, and DaveTrumbore.com. Want to support us? Tell a friend and review the show on iTunes. It's super boring, but it really does help us out. Chat us up on Twitter at MorningTunes. Remember, that is morning with a U. Check us out on Instagram and Facebook at Saturday Morning Cartoons. You can find all of these links on our link tree that's in the bio for all of our social media sites, and you can listen to us on YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, wherever fine podcasts are sold. Want to drop us a message? You can email us, SaturdayMorningCartoons@gmail.com. Thank you guys so much for listening. This is the first episode that we have for Netflix November. Tune in 2 weeks. Tune in in 2 weeks, and we are going to be talking about Netflix original series Big Mouth. Thanks for listening.
Hey, everybody. Thanks a lot for listening to Saturday Morning Cartoons. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to transform and roll out.